The following is an Operation Podcast production.
Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Jaffe, author of the best-selling book Unhooked, and you're watching Ever Forward Radio. If you want to learn how to change your life for the better, change the life of the people around you for the better, watch us.
Reframe for us, please, this aspect of substance addiction and identity. I think a lot of us are going, where did identity come into play here?
Huge. Well, I'll give the easiest way it's come into identity. Most people think that if you have an addiction, you're an addict, right? I think that's a standard. When I just said that, probably nobody batted an eyelash and nobody thought twice about that statement because it's become so integrated into us. But if you have depression, are you a depressive? If do people identify when they have cancer? Is that the thing that now defines them as a living? I would argue the answer is no, right? You can have a condition and not be defined by it. And that's an issue with addiction. There's even something in the term, and it's why I really recommend for people to stop using the term addict to describe anybody. But it goes beyond that, right? You're an alcoholic. There's two things. It makes you the identified problem. You're it. And it defines your problem as alcohol. So there's alcohol addicts, there's gambling addicts, there's cocaine addicts, right? It suggests the person is the issue, not their behavior. And secondly, it suggests that the problem for a cocaine addict is cocaine. And it's not. A cocaine addict doesn't struggle with cocaine. Cocaine is the thing that fixes what they struggle with. Yeah. And it's a little bit like if, have you ever known anybody who's had cancer? Yeah. Did they ever go through radiation or chemo?
No.
Okay, so I know a few people who stage 4 cancer, they've survived, but they went through chemotherapy, lost all their hair. Imagine if we said, oh, you got to fix this balding you're going through. It's a really, really big problem, right? Or when your leg is broken, imagine we would focus on the pain, like the pain was the thing we have to fix. The drug use is a symptom of underlying problems. And I'm far from the only person, by the way, to say this, right? I mean, Gabor Mate, Johan Hari.
Yeah, root cause.
The number of books that have been written about the underlying cause are massive. And yet, sometimes even in those settings, this notion of identifying the person as the problem. And I'll go one level broader. Cheating, conflict, and avoidance in relationships, oftentimes tied to addictive compulsive patterns. Absenteeism at work, underperformance, aggression, violence, and over-control at work often can deeply, deeply connected to compulsive habits that are not under control. And so people hide it. They try to hide the fixing behavior, right? The coping, and it leaks out in all these other ways. And then we end up wondering why 50% of marriages end up in divorce. Why almost all of us have been in a work setting. I'm sure not here because you're the boss. So I'm sure that's never happened here. But we've all ended up in unhealthy work environments, and we think it's something about the person's personality. I've found often, and I've worked with a ton of executives, we think it's absenteeism or health problem, but in reality it's drinking or substance use or porn use and things like that. So people hide their coping strategy because it's so shaming and stigmatized.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, the thing is never the thing here. It's just whatever substitution we have found, whatever outlet we have found, whatever easier way to navigate that feeling or to avoid the feeling entirely, that then kind of becomes the compulsion, right?
Yeah, and as I talk about in many of the stories in the book, it often started really early, right? So you get somebody who struggled in meaningful ways when they were 4, 8, 2, 12, and we don't have tools. I mean, I don't know about your family. In my family, nobody came home and talked about anxiety and depression, how to deal with uncomfortable feelings. I didn't have tools for that. So when I found out at 14 that alcohol made me feel normal, or at least the way I conceived of normal to be, which for me meant not being socially anxious, being able to talk to girls without getting all sweaty and weird and mixing up my words. I was like, oh, I just found a medicine. It didn't feel like a problem. What I didn't realize is now I just found, as you just mentioned, a hack, a shortcut to fixing my anxiety, but I'm still anxious under all of it. I'm still insecure. I still feel like I'm not good enough. I'm still judging myself all the time. Alcohol just masks that. So there are only two options. Either I figure out how to fix that underlying issue, or I have to keep drinking in order to pretend that it's fixed.
The root cause stuff is always interesting to me because I think from having so many great guests on the show, but also just my own deep work, you really can narrow a lot of things that you love about yourself in terms of identity, habits, and things that you are trying to work on or wish you could change back to a root cause. And predominantly, I think it's like 3 to 7, ages 3 to 7. Or at least I think the deeper the issue or the deeper the thing you're trying to, the bigger the thing you're trying to change is linked to a deeper rooted issue, and that deeper issue goes years back. And we always say it's kind of like this 3 to 7 age range, these formidable years of when really consciousness and awareness is coming online. Our brains are further developing, but also we're still mirroring and mimicking a lot of what we see. So what's being imprinted is kind of becoming our own, but we're still very heavily impressionable. So there's confusion there, which then kind of turns into a lifelong series of habits that serve us or don't, right? So could we just, for argument's sake, take whatever the thing is we don't love about ourselves, or this compulsion or even addiction, and just fast rewind all the way back to these years and just start there? Or do we have to kind of go year by year by year, trauma by trauma?
That's a great question. I would say you don't have to go trauma by trauma. You said 3 to 7. Some of the stuff that I've seen talks about from 3rd trimester, so before you're even born. And if you
Like
think
getting into epigenetic stuff, or
not just that, I mean, certainly that, and your hearing starts developing. So I'll give you some scenarios from some of the work that I've done that are really difficult to think about because we're barely conscious. But imagine, I'll give you 2 separate scenarios, right? Imagine one kid born into a family where every time they get, when a baby gets hungry, I mean, you've got a 10-month-old, right? Baby gets hungry, they don't know they're hungry, man. They just, something feels wrong, feels uncomfortable. So what do they start doing?
they cry.
They start flailing and crying. They're telling you something's wrong. Even if they had words, they wouldn't know to put hunger to it. They haven't figured that out yet. Their stomach feels off. That's all they know. Maybe they feel weak because their blood sugar is low, right? Does that make sense? There's no logic. There's no intellect. It doesn't exist yet. But they know something is off. Viscerally, like somatically, they know in their body something feels off. So they cry. Imagine one baby, every single time they do that, immediately fed, right? Mommy's like there with a boob, boof, done. Maybe they flail for a fifth of a second. Mommy's so intuitive. Or maybe mom is even so intuitive she predicts, this is about what needs to get, and the baby never gets hungry. That's one scenario.
Oh yeah, that's real.
Yeah. Now imagine a different scenario. Mom's busy, not around, preoccupied, drinking, fighting with dad all the time, right? So now there's like loud voices, etc. Baby cries longer, baby cries longer. The discomfort is getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's not being taken care of. Maybe even instead of being fed 15, 20, 30 minutes later, somebody hits them. Because stop being so annoying, right? What do you need? Both of those realities exist right now in this country and in the world at large, right? Both of those are existing right now. Can we say at all that those two kids are going to develop the same? No. One of them, first of all, in one scenario that I created, the kid never even had to cry. One kid maybe might learn to believe that their needs will always be taken care of. And I'm embellishing a little bit. I'm exaggerating a little bit.
Yeah, we're on kind of far ends of the spectrum here.
100%. And I'm doing this to illustrate a point. Never really even needing to cry, never really needing to vocalize or let their needs be known because they get taken care of right away, right? So that feels safe. That's nice. It feels safe and taken care of. But maybe the baby doesn't even start regulating their own bodily functions because they don't know that they're hungry. They get fed before they're even hungry. I'm creating a scenario. On this other one, expressing your needs becomes unsafe, right? Crying because you're hungry might get you hit. Now, I described a baby, but imagine a 3-year-old who gets hit for the first time, right? Abject fear. Mom or dad just hit you. They're supposed to be the safe one. What happened? Now you start questioning yourself and your relationship to them, and are adults safe to be around? Now, again, everything I'm saying right now is an adult trying to put myself in the shoes of a baby, literally like a newborn or a 3-year-old. They're not putting words to this.
Right.
It's feelings. Yeah. It's a visceral sense of being. You know what I mean? So now take that baby who's avoidant because they weren't attended to or got even yelled at or punished physically because they had needs. maybe they become avoidant later in life. They learn, you know what, I'm going to go take care of myself. I don't need anybody else because people aren't unsafe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes me kind of think both could be bad, both could be good, both could just be. Because on one end, we have the person who maybe grows up to be this developmental person that doesn't know that fear. They always just they assume, and also they've been conditioned that all their needs are always going to be met. And so they don't really know that friction or that struggle. Whereas on the other end, it's the person that just fears ever even showing any friction or struggle because they know their needs aren't going to get met, and also severe consequences that weren't really their fault. But both, with the right sense of awareness to what is happening and maybe going back to that root experience, still are going to have work to do.
100%.
Right? So it's not even if we had a great childhood between 3 and 7, or even an infant or a horrible one, objectively speaking, that doesn't excuse us from unraveling these layers in our life and the work necessary, right?
Yeah, totally. I actually talk specifically in the book. I don't think we should talk about them as being good or bad, because they're different. Mm-hmm. We all grew up in different circumstances, and through those different circumstances, we learn different ways of being. Mm-hmm. What ends up happening, though, is then you're then 35 years old going, what the hell? Why am I doing this?
Right.
Now, the problem with these scenarios that I just drew is most people don't remember what it was like when they were 3, and certainly nobody remembers what it was like when they were newborn. So, like, I know my mom went back to work when I was 2 weeks old, and stopped breastfeeding me then, right? I was with babysitters until I became a latchkey kid around like 6 years old when I went to elementary school. When I talked to my therapist, my coaches earlier in life, I can imagine that at some point I felt lonely, or at some point I felt scared because I was by myself. I don't remember it. But I became pretty avoidant, and the way I used to talk about it was I had a lot of grit. I was very individualized, right? Like I was really in control of my feelings, and
one could even say self-resilient.
Highly self-resilient, individualistic, etc.
Which isn't necessarily a quote here, bad trait. I think a lot of people are working towards more resiliency, more self-resiliency.
100%. On the flip side, made it really hard to connect to people.
Yeah.
Because I learned from a young age, I don't need you. Mm-hmm. I take care of myself. And so, again, it's not a good or bad. What I would say for us, for this context, Chase, is that, people come and they listen to this, or they struggle with things at work, right? Their work environment. Maybe it's their company and stuff comes up. And when you find yourself engaging in the same pattern of behavior over time, I worked with a guy once who just, when things weren't going his way, he would just start screaming at everybody. He's a good guy, right? He doesn't wake up in the morning and say, today, I really want to yell at a bunch of people that work for me. That's not what was going on in his head. Yeah. So there's something else that's going on. And if you are listening right now and there are these patterns that keep showing up, odds are they're developmental, early, felt somatic patterns, and you developed a way to cope. In both scenarios that I just talked about, you develop a way to cope. That 3-year-old kid, and I've worked with a lot of adults who are very successful and were beaten as children. It's not, that doesn't necessarily create an incapable child. Vice versa, it actually creates somebody they have to figure out, well, dad comes home and he may beat me. I've got to figure out, do I walk out the back door as I hear dad pulling in? Do I hide? They've got to figure out how to navigate that scenario. So a lot of them actually end up being pretty damn functional, but highly defensive, highly mistrusting, very self-reliant, and having a difficult time to connect with others. So I don't talk about it as good or bad. I just say, if you want to understand the patterns of why you behave right now, oftentimes they could have started before you were intellectually able to process them.
What I love about what you're talking about here is that, for me, the word excuse immediately comes up. I think this just completely abolishes the ability, the crutch anyone has for any kind of excuse based on how they perceived their childhood to be, or their initial set of circumstances, call it nature, call it nurture, or combination of, for either side of the coin here. And I think when, part of the philosophy of, moving ever forward here on the show is really kind of recognizing that it might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. And with that comes, I wish I could take credit for that. I forget where I heard it, but that also comes with, really recognizing where you have excuses in your life, because you can't take responsibility for something in your life where you first have an excuse in place for it.
Yeah, when we talk about, if we get to the unhooked method piece, there's a part that I talk about around acceptance. You've got to accept that you've done what you've done to now because it's what you thought would work best, and it's the way your brain behaved, etc. You've got to stop shaming yourself from it. You've got to forgive the other people who played a role in teaching you to behave that way, even let's say your dad beat you every single day of your life. I'm sorry, and that sucks. But tomorrow's Friday or tomorrow's Monday, right? You've got a job interview or you've got to go perform. That's just not going to cut it. Like, your life is not going to get better by looking at other people for resolution, especially when those things happened 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. In the book, we talk about this. It's something I work with all my clients on, the sphere of influence. Things you fully control, things you have some influence over, and things that are completely outside of your control. Take that last bucket and just, if you can, completely ignore it, right? What does that mean? Like, if you sit around and you watch the news all day, you might be really informed, but really you might be shooting yourself in the foot as well. Because so much
probably a higher stress person.
Higher stress, and also you can't do shit about it. That's not helping you change. Now, if you're perfectly happy with what's going on right now and you just want to watch and get informed, that's great. But if you can't take action on it and change it, I say leave as little of it as possible. Focus mostly on the things you are fully in control of. And that's your thoughts, your behaviors, the work you do to change. That's under your control. I've got a wife, I've got 3 kids. I do not control them. I have differing levels of influence over them at different points, right? So they're kind of in that second bucket. But I think I so agree with you. What is one of my coaches once said, everybody's guilty and nobody's to blame. And I love that.
Ooh.
Right? My mom left me to be on my own when I was 2 weeks old and did the best she could, man. Best she could. But she had to go back to work. My dad worked 2.5 jobs growing up. I literally barely ever saw him until I was 14. Like, vacations and Saturday mornings is when I saw my dad, pretty much, other than specific, like birthdays and events. He tried his best, man. And if I sit around and bemoan what he did or didn't give me, I'm missing an opportunity to learn from that.
This kind of reminds me of a quote I had pulled from big Stoic philosophy guy. I read the Daily Stoic every day. It sounds weird to say out loud. I've been reading the same book every day for 10 years. But, it's just a little quick quote and a reflection on that.
Sure.
And I found it's really interesting because even if I feel like I'm the same person this year as I was last year, reflecting on something that's now imprinted year after year after year is a great way to kind of barometer, progress.
Yeah.
But Epictetus says, quote, "Men are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them." Oof. So I think this ties in perfectly to what we're talking about here of a really perspective. And I wanted to ask you I haven't asked you directly, what are these hooks that you talk about, but maybe now's a good time to introduce them. And more specifically, do these hooks come more from the event or the interpretation of that event?
There is nothing objective about reality. And I'm not saying there isn't an objective reality somewhere out there. We can get into that discussion, very philosophical if we want to. But so you took me there. So let me just say, so in the book, there's two big components to my method. Number one, understanding your behavior, and number two, knowing how to change it. So the first one is what I call the SPARROW behavioral loop. And it's essentially me taking cognitive behavioral therapy, trauma-informed somatic work, and behaviorism and putting them together into one chain so that when something happens in your life that makes you uncomfortable or you want to understand better, you can go back and at least break it down to its components, right? Like we talked about professional audio before. To some people, they look at what we're doing here like, how do they make this happen, right? And if you've ever worked in videography or if you've ever worked in professional audio, even if you were probably a musician, right? Probably not that big of a mystery because you know how the pieces fit together. And so I say in the book, there's really a chapter on this. We're most afraid of the things we don't understand. So there's nothing as scary as waking up every morning. Like I'm very open about this. My wife and I had some issues when we were dating. Or I came from a very self-reliant environment, not very good at connecting emotionally. She came from almost the opposite, where she just needed more and more emotional connection. We kept not meeting in the middle on that. And so when I didn't understand what she needed from me, so she would try to explain to me what she needed. I felt like I was giving it to her. It's literally like she would be telling me to paint in a color I'd never seen. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
And so I didn't understand it. And I was like, what? Yeah. I'm doing what you say. And she said, you're doing nothing near it. And I'm sure people listening right now have been in a discussion. If you're in a relationship, you've been in a discussion like this. And so once I started understanding intimacy, somatic polarity in the context of male-female relationship, et cetera, I started understanding the conversation better, and all of a sudden it was a lot easier to know what to do. So we're most scared of the things we don't understand. Once you understand something, at least the anxiety and fear, shame can go down to some extent, but it doesn't change behavior, right? The equation or the analogy I give to people is sports. Do you play any sports?
I did. I played baseball growing up. Yeah.
Baseball is a perfect example, right? You can watch probably you can't watch every game in the freaking series because
Baseball's way too long.
So many games. But let's say you can watch thousands of baseball games, play 500 hours of baseball and video games. And if I put a bat in your hand and you've never played baseball, and then I give you a glove or a mitt, you can't play baseball, right? You suck. You are terrible. You just spent years, maybe a decade, watching and playing video games. You don't know how to play baseball. Why?
You're trying to emulate. You're not actually being.
And there's no muscle memory. Your body doesn't know how to do it. It's known how to see it and understands baseball. It can tell you everything that it's read about the mechanics, et cetera. It's never practiced it. So knowledge is often a precursor to change, but it's not enough for change, right? It's not sufficient. And so what I talk about in the book is for a lot of people, it's good to understand what you're doing. Because if you're cheating on your partner or you've cheated on many partners in the past and you keep finding yourself in that moment going like, what the fuck am I doing? It's really, really scary. If you find yourself drinking every night, blacking out twice a week, and you're not looking to do it, really, really scary on the other side, right? All these things are frightening until you understand them. So the SPARROW loop, it's called SPARROW. It's SPARROW. Stimulus, perception, activation, response, outcome. Stimulus is the trigger, like you started. It's a thing that starts the behavior. Perception is exactly that. It's the view, the understanding, the beliefs you have about what just happened. Activation is the feeling, the affect, the emotion, and the somatic feeling in your body that it creates. The response is the behavior, what you do in response to it, and the outcome is what happens on the flip side. So if somebody comes to me and they say, man, I need to stop drinking. I black out every other day and I don't really know what's going on. We can do it for their first drinking event or overall around drinking. We can just do it around one specific experience. You say, okay, you started blacking out at 4 p.m., 6 p.m. That's when you lost memory. When did you start drinking? That was when the behavior started, right? What was the trigger? What happened earlier? You can literally just break down an event.
Now, is that because most repetitive compulsive behaviors are more or less kind of the same thing over and over, just same shit, different day?
Pattern over and over, exactly. But until
so it's almost like the instance doesn't matter that much. Like the example doesn't matter as much because it's probably going to be the same things you were just describing.
Yeah, what matters more than anything is that you care about the outcome because then you'll do the work to. Most people don't know what triggered them. Most people have no idea. They come to me and say, well, when did it start? They go, I don't know. When I got a drink? I go, no. You walk to the bar to get drunk. Like, when did that start? And so we walk them back and together we map out. Sometimes it's 7 hours, sometimes it's 2 weeks of an experience, an arc. Now, you talked about perception from the quote. I talk about a million examples in the book, but have you ever had any friends who kind of talk shit to each other? Right? They like guys like, talk shit about your shoes when you walk into the room. Or just like, that's just the way they communicate, right? Guys do this a lot to one another. If some random guy in the middle of the street walked up to you and said the exact same thing as one of your friends.
We got a problem.
We got it. It's totally like it's disrespect. Yeah. How dare you? Do you know who I am? Now I know people who really can take that stuff personally and have started fights over stuff like that. But my point is, somebody calling you an asshole, if it's one of your best friends walking down the street, could literally make you smile and laugh. A random dude out of a car could make you want to chase the guy and hunt him down.
Yeah.
Same word. So it's not the word. That's not the stimulus. It's the interpretation, the meaning you created around it. Now, I go one level. So that's cognitive behavioral therapy. That's all it is, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy is something happens, you interpret it, and it makes you behave a certain way. There's nothing new about that. What I think CBT missed was how much of it is visceral and not even logical. CBT thinks that we react because of our thoughts, but I don't think that's true. I think the thoughts and the perspective create a feeling in our body that reminds us of that early developmental stuff we talked about earlier. If you are mean to me or cruel to me, if that's the interpretation, and it brings up lack of trust I have because of people harming me when I was younger, now I've got to cope because that creates the same feeling of terror that I had when I was younger. And as an adult, I can act. When I was a baby and you hit me, I had nothing to do, right? But later in life, as I grew up, teen, et cetera, young adult, I created ways of coping with the fear, right? And so what do people, and we all know this. If you know somebody who picks fights all the time, it's very clear that it's because of lack of self-confidence and lack of self-assurance. They're trying to prove something, right?
Overcompensate. Yeah.
It looks obvious to everybody else.
Yeah.
They would deny it to the grave
Yeah.
that they lack self-confidence, right? That's one of their biggest fears, that somebody would believe that they're weak. Does that make sense? So now we have to understand something happened. What is your belief around it? And what is the feeling that it creates in your body that then makes you act? Because the behavior, what I say in the book, is we don't act in response to a trigger. We act in response to the feeling that our interpretation of the trigger created. And so that's the loop you've got to focus on. The problem with most behavior, have you ever known anybody who struggled with drinking? Okay. The problem with people who drink too much and have a problem with alcohol is they drink, they black out, and they have a terrible night, a DUI. Their wife threatens to leave them. Their girlfriend dumps them on the side of the road. They do something stupid. And they go, well, I drank and blacked out and I had a bad night, so I should stop drinking. And they miss the entire trigger belief activation piece. So they never get it. And then they wonder, they can try this for 10 years and they wonder why it's not working. It's not working because the force that's pushing you into that compulsive pattern hasn't been touched.
So it kind of makes me think, I think a big part of, we'll call air quote here, the work, when we're understanding and retracing our steps here, is, let's say we're getting to this point of detaching, separating the response from the emotion, and then we work on the response, right? We're learning to overcome these stressors and this visceral somatic sensation of worry, of anger, of hate, of anxiety, of fear, whatever it is. We work on that, but yet the sensation still shows up in our life. We're getting better at not reacting the same way, but yet this thing, this uncomfortable, painful, unwanted feeling still shows up. What do we do now that we've kind of mastered or are mastering the response to that instead of just overreacting? What do we do about the feeling? Does that ever go away?
Well, so I don't think we started the response, actually. So the way I think about it is like this. That feeling, and again, whether it's like I feel misunderstood or I feel rejected, or my stomach is in knots, right? So both are feelings. One is an intellectualized word for a felt sense, and the other one is literally the somatic feeling. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
So I equate both under activation. Like they both count as far as I'm concerned. So let's say when you feel rejected, and historically when you felt rejected, whether by mom who didn't feed you, the bully at school who out-how'd you, or you kept going, like, this didn't happen to me, but I imagine, imagine like a elementary school or junior high kid kept going out for plays and not getting roles and they feel rejected, right? That's just an example I'm giving you. So there's a felt sense of not being good enough and being rejected. When that feeling comes up, your body reacts out of a limited menu of things that it's known how to do. So I'll give an example, right? Let's say when you feel rejected historically, you either drink, because that made you not care about it, you go to sleep, or you binge watch TV. I just made up a scenario of 3 different behaviors, right? Well, let's say you're hanging out on Thanksgiving with your family. It's coming up. I don't know if this will come out before or after, probably after.
No, we're just a few days away, so no.
Okay.
It'll be after Thanksgiving, yeah.
Yeah, so Christmas, Thanksgiving, the holiday season is here. You go to a party, you're in that rejected state. Well, you're probably not going to, especially it's a family, you're not going to go to a different room and start binging TV.
I hope not.
Can't go to sleep at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
Wine's right there. Tequila's right there. You start drinking to deal with the felt sense, because historically that's your limited menu of things that you do when that happens. And a lot of us, we have things we do when we're anxious. We have things we do when we're scared. We have things we do when we're rejected, things we do when we're tired. Some of us who are kind of into health and well, like when I'm agitated, I work out. I've turned it into an active coping. But if the only way I knew to deal with anxiety was to work out, we'd probably have a problem. Does that make sense? So I actually start on perception and activation, not on response, because we won't get into all this because there's just so many tools in the book, but I'll give just one example. Perception is a really wonderful thing to start at. So some of the work I do is all the way from my ultra high net worth people to some of the people who are really, really struggling at the edge of losing everything, is psychedelic work. Why? And I write about it a little bit. We had a whole chapter about it, but I didn't want the book to start being known as only being about psychedelics. So psychedelics have a really good way of breaking up reality.
Oh yeah, I've talked about it on the show, but I've gone through a lot ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, MDMA, psilocybin. Yeah, it's been the thing to like quite literally push me over the edge when I'm looking for more of that deep work.
And that's why it works. The reason it works is it plays with perception. You think, and some people listening or watching this right now, I'm telling you, if you've never done this work, I'm not telling you to do it. I'm telling you to really try to internalize this next part. Everybody is born and is taught through culture, family, TV, etc., about what reality is. And we're all wrong. We're all wrong in different ways because we all learn different things. But how can you have people who believe Christ is God and people who believe that Allah is God, and both of them will go to the grave telling you that everybody is a complete moron and going to hell for believing it?
Yeah.
We're all living on this planet. Either both of them are completely wrong or one of them is completely wrong, right?
Or even something a little bit lower grade than that. I play this game with my wife all the time at airports is I'm just a passerby in someone else's main view of the world.
Yeah.
When we look at our perspective of everybody else in the airport or anywhere, we're the main character. Everybody else is just a passerby. But yet all realities are real. It's just depending on who's looking at it.
We're always the center of our own world, right? But we're the center of nobody else's, right? Maybe our kids can kind of take that place sometimes. That changes the game a little bit. But the same thing that I just used about God, it's true about food. It's true about the best sport to play and the best sport to watch. We all have these beliefs. And we hold on to them like they're truths. But they can't all be true objectively. So when you step back from that for a second, you go, okay, well, if my truths aren't objective, why can't I decide on what I want them to be? Like, if I believe in ways of seeing the world that cause me pain and suffering, that nobody is trustworthy, that you're born alone, you die alone, that people will use you for whatever they can, but they don't really care, or that you're not good enough. You know, if I have these beliefs, and a lot of the clients that I deal with have beliefs like this, or that other people are stupid. Maybe you think you're great, but other people are stupid, right? But if these beliefs hurt you on a regular basis, they make you hate your life. And beliefs are subjective, and they were taught. What if we could just change our beliefs? That would be a much better and easier starting point, because then whatever happened wouldn't even trigger a feeling.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, you're a believer in Stoicism, right? What is that if not a way to shift the way you see the world, to have less attachment? We live in LA. People are attached to their cars, their shoes, their watches, the sunglasses they wear, the home finish on their whatever kitchen, right? Like, people put so much value in things. And we know, if you believe in Stoicism, things are the most transient element in our life.
Nothing.
Well, they're nothing now, but they can be gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? Half my family survived the Holocaust. Literally, all their stuff was gone. The next day, they were gone. Like, I have a lot of friends, we talked about like the Persian culture, like people left Iran in the 70s. They went from wealthy, upper middle class or middle class to literally homeless with nothing.
My mother and father-in-law, nothing.
In a day, they left. To
rebuild a life.
To rebuild a life somewhere that is completely foreign and they know nobody, right? If that doesn't show you that things are transient, I don't know what will. So if things are completely transient, can we completely detach from them? And again, I'm not making this up. Like, John Lennon talked about this in frickin' Imagine, right? Buddhism is all about this. Stoicism, I'm not making this up, but we all have a belief that these things matter. The moment we move away from that, all of a sudden, I'm not scared of losing my money. Not because things aren't going to be hard if I lose my money, but because that's not where my value as a human being comes from. And so perception is the best place to start. Because if you can change a perception, nothing else after affects you, right? Buddha's not going to be addicted to alcohol, because nothing was going to upset him technically. No. The next place is activation. And then, do you meditate, or have you done we've all meditated at some point, right? What is meditation but reducing and providing you control over your somatic activation? So even if somebody says something that offends you, if you've practiced how to control your emotional state, you can take that, adapt, absorb the negative affect, and then you don't have to put out the response. So I think the response is actually the last thing to work on.
Okay. Well said. Thank you for that. And kind of what you're talking about there at the end really, for me, brings home this concept of identity, because I think once we can understand, once we can reflect on and then understand what truths we have been or are holding in our life, one could argue that you stack up X amount of truths that mold your identity. And I think ultimately to break free of what a lot you're talking about, you know, compulsion and addiction is detaching from this identity. Like you were saying earlier, I'm an alcoholic. That's who I am. I have a problem with this substance. And so I think if we can understand identity more, it becomes more freeing. I wouldn't say it becomes easier work, but it makes it more immediately personable because it is about me, I, you, us. And so I think we would love to have more control over that, more say so in that. And so when it comes to identity, if I've heard you talk about this before, how if someone wants freedom from addiction or whatever the thing is, they have to transform identity first. What does that practically look like? Someone's listening, just going, oh yeah, sure, I'll just change my entire thought of self and identity overnight. Maybe, but practically, what does that look like?
I love it. So it's funny because when I started doing this work, I didn't know of her, but then I always refer to her now. Carol Dweck's work on mindset, right? Growth versus fixed mindset. First of all, the whole idea of I have to change my whole identity now. I'm a big believer in not having an all or nothing approach to almost anything. By the way, we talk about wellness. Same with diet and exercise.
Oh yeah.
If you think you're going to go from a couch potato who doesn't move to 6 days of heavy lifting at the gym with 3 days of cardio and swimming in between, you're crazy.
I'll say the same thing in business too. Years of being a small business owner now, I run away from people that come running to me. Usually the more ready or eager someone is, I'm like, you're going to be wasting my time, or it just doesn't work out.
Well, because they have an idea. They have an idea of what it is, but they don't understand the grind. And I mean, we talked about Ever Forward, and I know we'll talk about it later too. But first of all, this doesn't stop. When you discover that the path to the life you want is self-work, you've just discovered a method. You've discovered a process. You've discovered an approach. There's no endpoint to this. Nobody ever reaches the endpoint of self-improvement. It has never been reached. I guarantee Tony Robbins is still working at it, right? And he's teaching the whole world about it. Yeah. So that's number one. Forget the all or nothing approach. That's really, really important to say. The next thing, the whole idea behind growth mindset is you don't even know what your next phase is. The start is just the belief that you are changeable. So in my first book, The Abstinence Myth, the first of 9 steps I gave was you have to believe that change is possible. So again, I wrote it. I'd never heard of Carol Dweck. And so it was really fun to me later that I found, I'm like, oh, there's a whole book about this. It's great. Should have read it before I wrote it. But if you don't believe you can change, and a lot of people don't, how many people do you know say, oh, well, I can't pay attention, or I'm lazy, or I have a lot of, I'm anxious all the time. Like
I'm too set in my ways. I'm too old. I'm too this. I'm too that.
Yeah. First of all, you're not. That's BS. But if you believe it, you won't do the work that's required to change. And I think that's the important thing. I'm 49 years old right now. I'm weirdly in the best shape of my life. Now, there are a lot of reasons we can talk about more. Like I found out I had no testosterone in the last 10 years of my life because of heavy drug use that I talk about in the book here. I think I just wore out my entire system. So I used to work out and get no gains from it. Well, I had to change things, including like taking testosterone and things like that to just shift my body's ability to do it. But at 49, I'm in the best shape of my life. And if you would have told me in my 20s that was going to be true, I would have called you a liar because 50-year-old was ancient. Yeah. So again, our beliefs that we are the way we are or that the world is the way it is, I think is one of the most damaging aspects to our happiness and joy. Because if you're smart and you know you're smart, anything that proves otherwise or anytime you don't know something is really scary because, well, I'm supposed to be smart. Why do I not know this? But if you just tell yourself, look, I can get better at anything I want. I just have to pick what I'm focusing on. So that's the identity shift to me. The identity shift is not about I'm an alcoholic and now I'm a non-drinker, or I'm an alcoholic and now I'm a moderate drinker. Like that's silly. That's like, why even make alcohol your focus? Like why is alcohol the central thing you're focusing on? Why not just go to, I'm an imperfect human being. I do some things right, I do some things wrong. And I know that I have what it takes and I will do the work that it takes to change those aspects of myself that I don't like into something better. And then the growth mindset thing is I'm sure you've gone through this 20 times in your life, but at least 5, let's say by now. You get to the next phase. And when you've changed some things about the way you are, another version of the world opens.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's like another level in a game.
Yeah. What's the phrase? When you climb your mountain, all you'd see is the next mountain. Yeah. At the peak of at the summit of your current whatever in life, you're going to see what's next for you.
100%. And I have a real story about this. My wife and I just bought some land in Malibu, and it's up on a hill because everything in Malibu is up on a hill. And so we're not rich enough to buy by the beach. But, when you're down on the road before you go up, all you see around you is mountains. And then you start climbing up and you see the top of some of those mountains because they're really, really low. You climb up a little bit more. All of a sudden you see through the mountains to the beach. Yeah. You climb all the way to the top. You've got like 180 beach view, and you see mountains you didn't even know existed when you were in the bottom. Those mountains were there the whole time. Your perspective shifted. It has nothing to do with reality shifting. It has to do with your perspective shifting. And that's the biggest unlock I can give people is no matter what you're struggling with right now. And you talked about entrepreneurship. I've been an entrepreneur for, we're 2025. I started 17 years. It's never easy. I'm sure it's not easy even when you're Mark Cuban and you're destroying it, by the way. Or we all know it's not easy when you're Elon Musk, no matter how you feel about him, because the guy works like a crazy person. But it's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be enjoyable. It's supposed to be enlightening. It's supposed to be purposeful, right? That's what it's supposed to be. I think that's another thing. I don't know when we started this in America, like Stoicism, again, very much against what I'm about to say right now. But if you're going for easy, your life is going to suck, period. Because nothing is easy that's worthwhile, not in the long term.
There's always a bigger trade-off, in my opinion, for taking the easy way out. There's always a bigger, longer term debt to pay when it comes to doing something the easy way. Yeah. Sitting your ass on the couch all day watching TV is easy now, but long term, you're going to have no bone density, no muscle mass, probably chronic illness, disease.
Probably no relationship.
No relationship.
Because who wants to be with you?
Yeah.
Who wants to be with
pre-diabetic, diabetic. And so, whereas, choosing to, take your life back at 49 like yourself and not accept your circumstances or just believe that you can change for not even better right now, but just different, then it's hard work now. Hard work to get in the best shape of your life, but you're adding years potentially to your life.
Is it Andy Frisella? Is it Choose Your Hard?
Yeah. Andy Frisella, yeah, I think so, yeah.
I'm a big believer in that. And my life was hard. We haven't talked about it at all, but I used to be addicted to meth. I used to be heavy into drugs. I mean, like from about 18, maybe even 17 to 25, 26, I don't think I was sober one full day in my life.
Wow.
And heavy. Like I got into meth. It got really, really deep. And life sucked. When I was dealing heavily, I had a lot of money. I would date. Like I had no problem then dating girls or hooking up with girls, I guess, more than dating. I was surrounded by people, quote unquote friends. Went to Vegas, went on trips. Like I would do really amazing things. Life was horrible. It was hard. And it was hard for a completely different reason than my life being hard now, being an entrepreneur, having 3 kids, a wife, and just really busy life. Both hard. The thing I remind my clients all the time, like, how do you know the difference? Like, am I on the right path? Close your eyes and imagine you got really, really good at that thing in 15 years. Do you like the end point?
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if I got better at drug dealing, I would just have more drugs, more money, more, no offense to people who are sex workers, but more strippers and call girls around me, and like more guns, more violence. That's not the path I want to go. Now, by the way, no offense, there's people who do. There are people who they love that. They can't wait to have a crew of 20 guys and guns all around them and rule their corner or their neighborhood. Not where I want to go.
So what do you say? And we don't have to go with the, cartel, drug dealer, sex worker route. That's a pretty extreme route. Maybe we could, but I mean, there are people that are in their own way, they are very content with the way that things are. But yet they can really recognize objectively that things are not legal, that things are the difficult way. It's the different way. It's the path of more resistance, but yet they're about it. Is there hope for them, for people that just still are staying that the way I'm doing things is going to be the way that I'm doing things? Is there any hope for them for transforming?
I would talk about it. I've worked with thousands of people now. I really don't make such a massive distinction between the people who like do blow on the weekends with their friends or or during the week, and the boss who can't delegate to save his life and screams at his staff, right? Like, I think they're both habits. They're both compulsive habits. The people don't wake up in the morning saying like, man, I can't wait to do some blow on a Tuesday at 4 p.m. because I can't get my work done. Or, by the way, you know how many executives I still know to this day, everybody in Venice thinks that the world has stopped drinking.
Oh,
no
yeah.
offense, y'all, but that's bullshit. Like, people are drinking everywhere.
Everyone's like, hey, you want to go to a party in the sauna? I'm like, no, can we get a beer?
Yeah. But like, you go into the executive world, everybody's still drinking.
Yeah.
Well, why do you think everybody drinks 3 glasses of wine and an old fashioned or a bourbon with their dinner? Because they're stressed out. And it's the only time that their body relaxes. Now, we can all sit here and judge them and recognize that it would be much better if they just all meditated. But again, it's that all or nothing game, right? And so, first of all, yes, there's hope. And I think the hope is an incremental change. The hope is in that person who has to do blow Friday night because they hate their job. They hate it, right? They've been working all week. They despise it. They hate their job. They hate their colleagues. They hate their boss. They don't think they make enough money. It has no purpose in it, right? Like, it all sucks. We don't have to go for an all or nothing piece. It could just be a perspective thing like we talked about before, and there could be a perspective shift that would change all that for them. They may have to find another job. But that's not, I mean, you found another, like you were in a completely different field and now you do this.
Yeah.
It's okay. It might be hard. It might be hard for months. You know, if you're listening right now, it might be hard for a couple of years. But then the question is, do I want to spend the rest of my life having to live one way and then escape, and then one way and then escape? Or do I want to do the hard work for 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, and end up in a place where you're not going to be happy every day? I'm sorry. I hate bursting your bubble. It's not happening. No matter how much money you make, no matter how many fans you have on Instagram or in real life or for your music, or it doesn't matter, right? Like, you're the best relationship on the face of the planet, the happiest, most well-functioning kids. You're not going to be happy every moment. Let that go. That's actually not the goal. I think the goal is to find a way of life, a process, that when you wake up in the morning, even when it's hard, you go, damn, I'm lucky. I'm lucky to be here. And I think there are a ton of practices and a ton of things you have to do, but we talked about it right before. To me, it's like laundry. It's like dishes, you know? I could eat off dirty dishes every day, or I could wash the dish and then eat from it, right? It's the same with work. I think we mentioned it before. I was talking to Sean about this at a different time, but I'm a parent to 3. I wasn't incredibly happy with the way I'm showing up with my kids. So I've pivoted the work I do with coaches on my own to working about how to be a better parent. There's always something you can work on. And if you move away from the having to be perfect or failure, addict or completely sober and clean and not letting anything dirty up your temple of your body, then I think it gives you some permission to be in a constant process of self-discovery, self-improvement.
I don't disagree. But for me, and I go back to a lot of times in the show, these fitness analogies, right?
Yeah, sure.
So we're in like a cutting phase, a bulking phase, or a maintenance phase. You know, we're trying to gain muscle, lose fat. We're trying to, whatever. We're trying to lose weight, gain weight, or stay the same.
Yep.
I also think that's kind of been true, at least for me, in this personal development journey. For years, especially like I was telling you earlier, the show would not exist without meeting Sean Stevenson, without his show, and without a lot of other people. And I was just like heavy and hard into how can I learn more? How can I be more? How can I apply more? Just education and growth and personal development, self-development, whatever you want to call it. And then, there's been a point where I'm like, I really have if I read another self-help book, I'm going to gouge my eyes out. If I have to talk about, how to, find happiness one more time, I'm going to jump off a cliff. And, but I've come to realize that it's just,
irony.
I'm in different seasons, different phases. And I think a lot of people can maybe relate to that. 100%. How would you kind of repackage what you're talking about here through the lens of, I'm in a personal development maintenance phase?
Sure. Well, so you and I just met. So let me know how this lands. How long have you been married?
Married 9 years, together for almost 13.
So 13, 9 married, brand new baby. Is it possible that you are focused on improvement in a certain area of life? your professional career was not where it wanted to. So I have I have this company called Ignited. We have an online platform that helps people with mental health and addiction. We've been doing that for about a decade. And so I do a quality of life assessment. It's really, really simple. It's a 10 slice pizza that you just give a 0 or 10 on all these different categories, like purpose, contribution, self-improvement, physical environment, health and fitness, relationship, love, all this stuff. Okay, family, fun and recreation. So all these different areas. I always tell people, you're really focusing on 1 or 2 slices at a time that you want to improve. And so it sounds like you weren't ecstatic about your professional career however long ago. And you need to make a shift. I don't know if it was at a 0, but maybe it was at a 3 out of 10 or a 4. And you went, I got to do something about this. But to leave a 4 out of 10 in career, let's say, you don't go 4 to 7. It might go 4 to 2 because you either it's like the hell of awareness, right? Because like now you know you hate your job, but you have nowhere to go. So now it really blows.
Like ignorance is bliss, maybe.
100%.
Yeah.
So now you're stuck there.
Yeah.
But you've got to find it out. So you have to start something new. It's hard. It's not easy to start something new. So now maybe there's more of a challenge, but you focus your area. You go, I've got to fix this area. So I think we shift our attention to which area of our life needs the most. You're a parent now. Anybody who's a parent knows this. And some of you loved it. Some of you were scared by it. Some of you embraced it. Some of you ran to the other side of the world. I'm not judging. I'm just saying the moment a kid comes out, I know as my first child did this for me. Your reality shifts. It's literally like somebody uploaded, like you're Neo and somebody uploaded a new program in the Matrix. You're like, whoa, I'd never seen the world that way. Different things matter. Like now where you are, Chase, your happiness, nowhere near as important is the responsibility, the connection, the duty that you have to your wife and your kid, right? Like, boom.
Like this year is the first year in probably 13, 15 years, I have not read a physical book.
Because there's other things to attend to, right?
Yeah.
That are more important. Now, here's the thing. It wasn't that kids weren't as important 5 years ago. They weren't as important to you. And so I think that's what you're talking about. And it's not that different than the different phases in workouts, right? It is.
Right,
like
yeah.
I'm now in maintenance phase. For 2 years, I had to build. But if I didn't do the building, there'd be nothing to maintain.
Exactly. I'm so glad you bring that up. Yeah.
So you did the hard work. It's not like you're not sick of reading books on happiness because you don't care about happiness. You're like, look, I learned 5 million things about how to be happy. I'm now going to go apply them. And then if you're like any of the people that I've worked with, half of those 5 million things are going to be completely irrelevant for you and do nothing.
Yeah.
Half of the rest of the half, so a quarter, will kind of work, and half will be freaking magic. And then you lock, like I do a gratitude list and a self-affirmation every day. If you would have talked to the 15-year-ago version of me, I would have slapped myself in the face if I would have said that. I would have been like, you're such a fucking idiot. It's dumb. Like you bought into all this woo-woo shit. Okay. That guy might even be right, but it makes me better. It makes people around me happier. It makes me more aware of the abundance and the joy in my life when I do that every day. So I just do it every day. And so, I think I love that you kind of push back, because what it sounds like to me is you're just done learning that for now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also a little bit different. I'm maybe a little, dare I even say, jaded. When it's like I'm on both sides of the fence. There was the personal development side, and then also it's what I do for a living.
Yeah.
So I'm curious and eager, and I want to get better for personal reasons, but then it's also my profession and my responsibility, to stay in this world. It's almost like if you're a butcher, right? And all you do day in, day out is butcher, have a deli or whatever, but then you go home and then you're just constantly doing the same thing. It's
somebody like, hey, can you cut up the meat? You're like, no.
Yeah, never again.
No.
It's like, how many chefs never cook at home?
Yeah. So here's something that's really funny to me about that, right? First of all, I think it really depends on how purposeful that piece to it is. What you do, right? So how long have you been doing this?
The show, almost 8 years.
Okay. So like you've honed in on right? Like over time it shifted and the focus improved and you've learned the tricks and you've gotten better at doing the thing. So I think that ends up being important because now it's your version of it versus the way you learn is supposed to be in the beginning, right? Like
Yes.
you modeled and now you refined and you edged it and you made it yours. So that's one piece. The other thing that I think you just brought up, which is really, really interesting, and I don't think I've ever talked about this in a podcast. When you go and look at the gurus and the experts and the people who speak and you read their books and you absorb the knowledge, that's distance learning, not in a virtual distance learning kind of sense, right? With technology. I'm saying like you're here, you see another way of being over there and you're trying to figure out how to get there and you're kind of walking towards it. Once you're part of it, a lot changes. Like I'm going to give the worst example of this and I'm going to give absolutely no names and no clues about who it is that I'm talking about, but maybe off air. But no, I don't like talking about people in specific ways, but I think this example...
It's a safe space.
Well, I think this example, it's just between you and me. I think this is a good example of the kind of thing that I'm talking about broadly. And this happens in a lot of different places. I've worked with a ton of celebrities and people who are in the public eye, and this is another example. But what I'm talking about is this. You live in West Hollywood. You probably know a lot of people in the wellness industry in LA, whether they're in WeHo or the Valley or Venice, right? And the number of times that I've seen somebody who espouses the cleanest living on the face of the planet and going back to nature, like at a ketamine cuddle puddle party in Venice, like doing lines of K off of a table, there is a part of me that's like, fuck, like I wish these people would be honest about what they're actually doing because they're selling a reality that is not true to people who believe it because they're so far from that reality, they have no idea. So then if you get closer to it, you realize that these people are not enlightened just because they stopped eating meat and they sit and like meditate in front of the sunrise every morning. Mm-hmm. That's not it. They do those things, but they also do a lot of other things they're not willing to talk about. Mm-hmm. And I think that dirties up the industry a little bit. And so if you're in it and you see that and people are not talking about it, I think you start seeing the double-edged sword of the public version of wellness. Yeah.
And I also, to kind of add on to that, without saying anybody, I feel like ultimately what it comes down to, besides, surface level, it could be, hey, you're not real, you're hypocritical, it's bullshit, it's all packaged, it's whatever. I honestly have really come to believe that these people have just found a way to interpret and say and sell something, but it's sad because they have not yet gotten to the point that they talk about. They have not actually had this true identity transformation. And I say that because if you did, you would have no problem being who you are in any circumstance.
So that's why this book used to have a whole chapter on like psilocybin, ketamine, and MDMA, because that's what I've been trained in. Those are the medicines that I've used. I've never done ayahuasca, and I'm just not super called to it. But like I used to do a ton of LSD back in the day when I was using drugs heavily. But psychedelics have been a huge part of my self-development. And I wouldn't be here right now if I hadn't had the experience, And so, Sophie and I, we had a lot of relationship. She had physical relationship trauma from before me, but a lot of relationship mending that we had to do early on. And MDMA played a huge role in that. And we're very honest about it because when people see where we've come from and we are now, if we pretended that it was just because we sat by the beach all the time and read self-improvement books and like work out together, we'd feel like we're liars. Mm-hmm. And so I think I'm just wondering if that's another piece of the puzzle is you go, look, I got everything I can from the books. Mm-hmm. Really what the books, with the psychedelics, that stuff, what it gave you is it redirected your attention and allowed you to look there. You were looking over there for joy and allowed you to look over here. And now you're in exploration mode. You're doing your own thing.
But this also brings perfect timing, kind of jumping down a little bit as we kind of get towards the end, because my man, you got a flight to catch in the not too distant future. I had this quote down I think is perfect segue here. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world.
And by the way, just to add to it, because your house will never be in perfect order, stop fucking criticizing the world. I'm gonna add to that quote a little bit. If you think for a second your house is in perfect order, you're delusional, because you still have stuff to work on yourself. The thing I hate the most, which is why I didn't just use words to describe specific people, but I could give 50 examples. Well, not 50, 15 examples of what I just said. But my belief is those people are on their own journey. And to the point that you made, they're feeling embarrassed, or they're feeling shame. For whatever reason, they're not feeling ready and prepared to be fully transparent about their own experience.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't even want to judge them. What I'm saying to everybody else who's paying attention to content that you're viewing. Again, I've worked with thousands of people. You never know somebody's real life until you know them personally, you see behind their closed doors, ever. Again, if I've worked, like when I've worked with very publicly visible people, what everyone sees and what is happening in their home can be 180 degree difference, right? Like the shift. So I stopped. I'll still read, I'll still absorb content, but I stopped associating it with the persona because I know I'm being played into a marketing ploy of sorts, right?
Let me challenge my own kind of point here on this and like kind of expand where you're at right now. Is that really the goal though? Is that the goal to get to this place of equilibrium and who we be about is what's the phrase? Be about what you talk about kind of thing. Is that really the goal, or is there fairness, or is there even a better way of being, or a different way in recognizing I need to be one version of myself here, I need to be another version of myself there?
Look, first of all, it's a great question. I don't really have an answer to that, right? But like, you admire Marcus Aurelius for his thoughts, not necessarily for everything he did in his daily life as a human being.
I'll even say I in this concept of philosophy, I like because of the willingness to reflect. The thoughts are kind of like what come after the fact. Like to your point earlier of, am I willing to change? Do I believe I could change?
Yeah. So I don't know, and I'm also not the authority on what the point of everybody's life is. Like that would be inane for me to believe that.
That's why we're all here, AD. We're supposed to get the answers from you, my man.
You know, like the notion that I have the right answer for everybody is far beyond my pay grade, and I don't even want to take on the responsibility. But I'll say this: I think the reason I was pointing that out is some people are listening to messages that are incomplete and then judging themselves for not being able to reach the same level of self-improvement when they're missing part of the equation. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll give an example that is actually completely directed to what people think my job is, which is primarily focusing on the regular addictions, alcohol, drugs, etc. Bill Wilson, who's one of the main original authors of the big book in Alcoholics Anonymous, it is said frequently that he took psychedelics, including psilocybin mushrooms, when he was coming up with the steps.
Yeah.
And that he wanted to include psychedelics as part of the mantra. But the powers that be, because just like the Bible for the New Testament got written after Jesus died, not while he was alive, because Jesus was Jewish the day he died. There was no Christianity, right? So Bill Wilson created this new book. They didn't include the shit he wanted to include in it because they thought that would dirty up the message. But if the origin of the shift is what you're trying to create, then why market it, right? Why start criticizing and censoring what really worked? Like I completely looked down at ketamine for many, many years in the psilocybin, when I was in psilocybin, MDMA, and even back in my LSD world. I looked at traditional psychedelics as the thing. And LSD opened my mind like crazy when I was in college and early adult, and psilocybin has done some pretty amazing work for me in my life. Totally looked down at ketamine. It was for depression. I didn't feel like that's something I struggle with, although it's absolutely something I struggled with when I was younger. I just looked down at it. But I did training at the Integrative Psychiatric Institute, IPI, and they do training on all three. Yeah. So to graduate and to get a certificate, they make you do a ketamine ceremony.
You got to do it practical. Yeah.
I had to do it. And they make you do that one because it's legal, right? They would make you do it.
Well, for the record, no one's forcing you to, it's like forcing you to do it. It's someone might hear that and go, they made you do ketamine.
No, nobody would. By the way, ketamine's fully legal. It's done on a completely legal. Yeah. All they're saying is they're not going to certify you as a practitioner if you've never had an experience. Your choice. They're not going to certify you. It's not a mandatory certification. So I went to Boulder and I did a ceremony. And it's an IM injection, etc. First words out of my mouth when I came out of the 45-minute ceremony was, "What the fuck?" Excuse my French, but it took me on a journey, and a journey that helped me question some things that I was going through at that time in my life. So, curiosity over certainty, openness over hiding is my set of values. I'm not telling anybody else that needs to be your value. But if you, like, I'll say it like this: if you espouse vegan eating and you're eating chicken in the back of the truck when nobody's watching, you may want to think about it twice for yourself. If you tell people meditation is the route to self-enlightenment, but when you meditate, you also do psilocybin 5 times out of 10, maybe not mentioning to other people that that's one of the ways you do it is providing an image. It's providing a marketing perspective, a marketing angle in your materials is not exactly real. So that's all I'm saying. And everybody gets to make their choices. I've made mine. And by the way, it's hurt me sometimes, and it's helped at others, but it allows me to be aligned.
I'm so glad you said that. And before I get to my last question here, I think that's such a huge point. And maybe it's just my own assumption, but I think the assumptions are made that when we choose to change our life, when we choose to try and make it better or learn from our mistakes or learn nature versus nurture, all these things we were just talking about, the assumption can be made that, it's going to be for the better.
Ooh.
That's not really, I wouldn't even say that's not the case like 40% of the time, maybe even half the time.
If you're really good at choosing. If you're really good at choosing, it's not the case. Yeah. Sean and I talked about this for maybe 20 minutes the other day. The bottom line is, you know what, Chase, you can give me a method that really worked to make your life so much better. Not only do you believe in it, but you have evidence from your own life.
Hey, here are my results.
It shifted everything for you, and I can try it, and it can make me worse. Because we're different human beings. And if we go back to where we started with those babies, we've had completely different upbringings. If you and I talk about the day-to-day existence that we had, they're really far from each other, right? I grew up in Tel Aviv in a small apartment. It sounds like you grew up, I'm assuming, in
the middle of nowhere
in
Virginia.
In a much more kind of rural area, more isolated, but also more open space, more nature, right? Like I was in a desert, you were in Virginia. Like I was speaking Hebrew, right? Like there's the number of things that were different about us growing up is immeasurable.
But every choice we made from that moment on has brought us here.
There you go.
Talking about the same thing.
Yeah. And so what works for you doesn't have to work for me. But if I learned, like if you and I were sitting, you told me what helped you, my leaning, my version, I would want to hear everything that did it.
Yeah.
Because then I get to make a real choice.
Yeah.
Versus, like, look, that's why I talked about the testosterone thing. Like if I didn't talk to people about the fact that I'm taking testosterone now, my testosterone, by the way, was at 50.
Oh, wow.
50. My body was not making testosterone anymore.
Yeah.
So if I pretend to people that I went from where I was 5 years ago to where I am now without testosterone, everybody's going to call me a liar. Number one, because that's insane. And number
people lie about taking testosterone?
No, nobody ever lies about it. I think there was a guy who just eats liver. That's how he gets his ridiculous results. So my point is, like, why would I be ashamed of doing something that I've done? I think that's the other point.
Well, that's a whole nother episode, shame. But I want to just kind of summarize what you were just saying there. And that's exactly what I mean by when I say live a life ever forward. And that's the whole point of this show, is to bring people on that, in my opinion, embody the mantra that I have embedded into my life and that I was witnessed to by my father and my family. But that's why we're here, is to learn and to take notes and hopefully apply it or kind of revisit some basics, some fundamentals. Maybe some of this has been, air quote here, fundamental for some people, but how many times do we skip the fundamentals because we think we're over them? We think we've got them down. So going back to the basics sometimes, or hopefully there's something new here for somebody. But I want to ask you directly to channel it through the mission here, ever forward, AD. What do those two words mean to you? How do you live a life ever forward?
I think the first thing that really comes up is that, first of all, we have no choice, right? Time is moving. So the only thing that we have to do is to keep walking, right? One foot in front of the other. What's that Chinese proverb, right? The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And just the idea that all I have to do is take the next logical, reasonable step for me to take right now. And as long as I keep doing that, one step after the other, I'm going to end up reaching my target.
I love that. There's never a right or a wrong interpretation, but I'll even say this concept of time is going to pass, right? So in theory, we don't actually have to do anything. We don't have to move forward because it's going to happen whether we want it to or not. So you could even go that route. And this is kind of where I'm at the last couple of years of my life is I'm no longer charging forward. I'm in a place of just extreme presence and just understanding and believing that, right, kind of my new mantra lately is you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Yeah. And so I sit still, I just be, and I understand that the river of life is flowing past me. It doesn't mean I'm missing anything anymore. No. That was a struggle, but it just means I have an opportunity to just reflect and observe, and change can happen. And then I will learn how to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, or you can just be chasing all the time, right? Which is, I guess, appropriate for you. But
it'll get you somewhere.
Well, you also have a kid.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, so I've got a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 7-year-old now. And this journey that you're already on, the river is literally right next to you, moving whether you choose to or not, right? That
crawling,
that river is going.
Rolling, yeah.
Every 6 months, every 3 months is something brand new you've never seen in your life. And I think what you just said, to be present. Again, I believe in seasons, like we talked about just about 10 minutes ago. Right now, the season is to pay attention to him. Pay attention to him. Because you're never going to get that moment again. The moment where your firstborn takes his first steps, that's never happening again, period. And so what else would you do?
Right, yeah.
Is another guest more important to that? No, right? Is going on another trip, like, no, that's the thing. I remember everywhere we were when each one of my 3 kids walked for the first time. And
what a gift, man.
But my first one, it was insane. It was like, wait, I made something, and it's like freely walk. Oh shit, you got to chase it now. But so congratulations on that.
Thank you, man. Well, of course, it's going to be in the podcast show notes, episode resources, or if you're watching on YouTube, the video description. But where can they go to connect with you, get the book, learn more?
So I have a website that's jaffe.com. That's pretty easy. I run a company called Ignited. That's IGNTD. So there's IGNTD.com. And then I'm all over social media as at Dr. Adi Jaffe, and that's DRADIJFFE. And so That's LinkedIn, that's Instagram. I think we're even on TikTok. I don't know.
We're everywhere and I don't even know it. That's the place. Yeah. Well, this was amazing. Wish we had more time, but let me get you out of here and on your way. My pleasure, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me, man. This was great.
This was so good.